Hi, welcome. Um, Yesterday we were looking at amortization of the table. Then today we're looking at creating an invoice. Okay, so we can create an invoice template. Okay, so in today's lesson, in tackling the invoice, we're going to look at some few functions. Okay, so to tackle this, we'll look at how to use the Vlookup function. Then we'll look at also some data validation, and we'll use the if statement, and we'll also look at the ISBlank, and hopefully we use the round function. All right. So what do we want to do in this? What we have here is an invoice that we want to be able to generate automatically. When somebody comes and selects what product they want, it should automatically give us the price for the product, then also automatically give us the total cost of the product, which means including the quantity which they are getting. Then afterwards, automatically it should come and give us the subtotal here. Okay, it should give us the subtotal and the invoice total. All right. Now, how is this is going to work is that it should immediately somebody selects an item here, it should look up the price from this list below here and bring us the price up into this column to give us the price automatically. Okay, so to do that, we would have to use our Vlookup. Then from there, we'd be able to see our way forward. All right, so let's get started. So now the first thing that I want to do is to be able to have a lookup. If I look up this value, it should be able to give me the value here. So what I'll say is to say equals, then say Vlookup. Now what are we looking up? Now our lookup value is the value that we want to be able to look at in our table array. So in this case, our lookup value is the flap top. So that's the item being purchased. So that's our lookup value. Then comma. What is our table array? Now our table array, this is where we're going to find this value that we are looking up. So in this case, it is this table here. All right, that is our table. In this case, you can avoid the headings, you just pick up the values. Okay, so we've gotten our table, but remember we need to lock our table, because if we drag this formula, we don't want the lookup table to change. So we lock it by pressing F4. Then it locks the entire table, comma. Now what is our column index? Now if you look at our table here, our column index here is number 2, because our table has got we are coming from this line. This is where we're going to look up the value. Then we will have our column index to be second. Remember, Vlookup looks up at values going the right direction. So when you're looking up a value, it's going to look up in the first column that you have selected in the table. Then the value that it retains, it's got you are going to specify. So in this case, our column index is number 2, comma. Now in this case, what type of a lookup is this? So if it's an approximation, which means it's true. If it is a false, which means it's an exact match. So in this case, you can just come and double click and it will pull up the false. But remember, in Excel, true is represented by number 1 and false is represented by the number 0. So in this case, we can just put 0, then close your Vlookup. So if you press enter, boom, you have your Vlookup there. Now you might have a problem. Let's do this first. If we drag down this formula, going down, boom, here it's able to retain the the item like Belen, where you have your price there. But below here you have a problem, because in here Excel is looking up this value here and it's finding that there is no value in there, so it is bringing you an error which is not available. Okay, so in order not to have this error on your invoice, you might have now to write another formula in order to say if it is empty in here, do not bring this error, rather probably leave it blank. Now how do you do that? So we can do this. We can use the if function, which will state that if in here it is blank, then you should not run this formula. Else, if it is if it is false, that it is not blank here, there's something here, then run this formula. Okay, so to do that, you say if, then our logical test here, the logical test here is going to be, we are going to ask a question here: is this blank or not? So to do that, we have a formula which says is blank. Is blank is just basically asking a question to say, is the cell blank or is it not blank? So if we click in this cell, then close, what this is asking is just to say, is this cell blank or not? So it will return the value of true or false. So if there is a value in here, it will say it is false. If there is no value in here, it will bring true. So the if function states that if the value here which is returned is true, then what should it do? So if the value, if it is true here, what should it do? So in this case, if it is blank, which means it's true, then it shouldn't run anything. So it should leave the cell blank here. Now Excel doesn't have a formula to say leave blank, but what it has are some characters that you can be able to use, which will assume that the cell is blank, which are double quotations. Okay, so if you put double quotations, two double quotations, which means the cell will be left blank, but it won't actually be blank, but it will assume it will look as though it is blank. All right, then if it is false, then it can run this formula. Okay, then we can come here and close our if statement, then we can press enter. All right, right now you don't see any difference, but if we run this down, drag the formula down, you see that we no longer experience that error that we were experiencing. But now here, for instance, these values are being typed in. So what if somebody makes an error? Okay, so if someone comes here and probably includes an extra space in their typing, if you press enter, you experience a problem here. Okay, so what you would want is that people should type values here which are actually in the table here. This is now where we can be able to use data validation. Okay, you can utilize data validation here to avoid errors, typing errors. So in this case, you can say, let's do this. We can remove this. Then what we'll do is that we'll highlight this cell here, the cells where we would enter our items that have been purchased. Then what we'll do, we'll go to data. Under data, we'll go to data validation. When you click on data validation to open up this dialog box, under this dialog box, you by default here where it says allow, it has got any value. That's why when you open a sheet, you can enter any value because of this setting. Now we want to be able to state that on what we have highlighted here, we want a specific values to be entered. So in this case, you have whole numbers, decimals, you've got dates, time, text length, and even custom. But in our case, we want to have a list. So we want to pick up our values from a list. Now here, our list will be from where we're saying source. So we can click on the ellipsis there, then scroll down and pick up our list. So our values should come from this list there. Okay, so we have highlighted the list. Then we can now say okay. So what we want is that if there is a blank space there, it should be able to ignore it. Then it should give us a drop down. Okay, insert drop down. Then we go and say okay. All right, now what does this do? What this does is that when we come to our item purchased, we can come here and select a product. If we select the product, it will automatically update itself this side. So if you come here, you can come and select another product that you want, and it will update itself. If you are typing a product, you just have to make you have to make sure that you type it clearly. But if you type a wrong in a wrong manner and you press enter, it gives you an error. So you receive an error here, so you can come and say retry, or you just cancel it. All right, then use the drop down. Then you can say okay, I want that. All right, okay, then you can even state here the quantity. All right, okay, so here we've worked it out. Now what about getting the total items? What will be the total cost? So you've got the quantity and the price there, so you want to know the total cost of this. So what you just do here is to say equals, then you're saying the price of the product times the quantity. If you press enter, it gives you the total. You just drag this down, boom. Okay, so it works out, but we still have another problem. We have the value error. Now how is this value error coming up? It's because it is checking in this cell, it is empty. Then here it actually when it checks here, it is empty, but when it checks here, it finds that there is actually a value, but that value is that as the space holder which we have put before. Okay, so let me show you how this works. So if I come here, then I say let's go to formula. We evaluate this formula. Formula evaluation, where is here. Okay, so you can come here, click on evaluate. This is the formula that we have in there. So if we say evaluate, you see here that it is actually bringing those double quotations that we had put. Okay, then when we come to, if we click again on evaluate, then here on this other cell it's bringing the 0. Okay, that's why you're coming up with the value error. Okay, so what we do here, we'll use the formula that we used here to state if it is blank here, it should not do anything. So what can we do? We can probably come here, just because we want to be lazy here, we can just copy this formula that we used here, copy it, escape, come to our formula here, then we can paste our formula, boom. So now we can close that, press enter, then drag the formula down. Okay, let's drag it further here. All right. Okay. So now we don't have a problem with, so if we come here, if we include another item, it won't be a problem. Okay, so it automatically updates. Okay, so now what becomes our subtotal? Our subtotal becomes alt equals, it's going to sum up everything in this value. If I press enter, then we have our total there. Then probably our shipping, we can come here and say probably to cost us 45 to ship this thing. Then our total invoice now becomes equals, then we sum up these values here. So we can say sum, then select that range, enter. Now we have our total there. So if they come up and say, okay, we want to add more things to our list, we can select there, state what's the quantity, then boom, your invoice automatically updates. Now in a case that we're dealing with extra more than two decimal places, we could have used the round formula. We could have rounded up our calculations. Okay, so this is the lesson for today. Try it out. Tell me how it goes. If it's clear, if you're able to follow, please let me know. Okay, all right, we'll pick it up later on. Okay.